welcome to Gefet in the Daf. I'm Yael Shimoni, bringing to you from Yeshivat Risha and Hadran, learning more in depth of Daf Yomi. And today I'm translating and giving a variation on the Shir of Rabbanit Chana, going to your dry food sugya in Hebrew last week about a very interesting and famous sugya, famous because of the Ktsot who wrote about the Rosh and our sugya, and also interesting because of the topic. We're learning the Darim, but as we will see, the topic to stay is whether or not I can be Mekayim Mitzvah if I send a messenger to do it for me. I'm not doing it myself. I'm sending somebody in my place. Can I ask somebody to be Notalula for me, to put tefillin for me, to sit in sukkah for me? Or is there a problem with all of that and I have to do the mitzvot in my own body? So this discussion arises from our sugya. Let's see how it develops. And I'm promising you this is going to be really very interesting. Okay, so we are in the Darim, Daf Ayin Bet, Amud Bet. Says the Gemara the following: האומר לאפוטרופוס, כל נדרים של נדרת אשתי, מכאן אפשר לבוא ממקום פלוני, הפר, והפר לה, יכול יהיו מופרים. The Gemara asks, you have a husband, the husband has an ability to be mefer the nedarim of his wife. Can he now go travel, I don't know, go around the world, leave somebody in his place, an apotropos, a person taking his place, and telling him, if you hear my wife vows, then you can be made for the vows. Can he take the ability to be made for vows and give it to someone else who's not him? What is the question? Obviously, the question is, this person instead is not the husband, and if it's a power that's only in the husband, how can he give it to somebody else? That's the question of the Gemara. The Gemara continues, Talmud Tomar Isha Yekimenu v'Isha Yiferenu Divrei Rabbi Yoshia. So Rabbi Yoshia thinks, no, there is a pasuk saying that this cannot take place. אמר לו רבי יונתן, מצינו בכל התורה כולה שלוחו של אדם כמותו. Rabbi Yonatan asks him, why, Rabbi Yoshia, do you think that a husband cannot give his power to another person? We've learned an idea in shlichut that when you take somebody and turn him into your shaliach, shlucho shel adam k'moto, the shaliach becomes the person. Kemoto, it's as if it's the person himself. Says the Gemara, okay, Rabbi Yonatan is asking a good question, but Rabbi Yoshia said only that it's a gzerat katuv. אפילו רבי יושע לא כאמר אלא משום בגזרת הכתוב, הוא אישה יקימנו ואישה יפרנו. אבל לכולי עלמא שלוחו של אדם כמותו. והא לא שמיע לה. אך הנמי דכאמר לכי שמענה מפר לה, לכי שמע להפר לה, ודסבר דילמה מטרידנה. So what happens here in the second part of the Gemara? First of all, the Gemara says, Rabbi Yoshia agrees with Rabbi Yonatan. There is no machloket about the idea that shlucho shel adam kemoto, that when you make somebody a shaliach, you really turn him into a shaliach. And all that Rabbi Yoshia said is, here you have a specific zerat katuv, a specific pasuk in the Torah that says this cannot be part of the usual shlichut. Continues the sugya and says, but there's still a problem here. Kuli alma shlucho shel adam kemoto, v'ha lo shmi'a la. Still, we have a problem because in order for a husband to be mefer the nedarim of his wife, he has to hear the nedarim, and here he didn't hear the nedarim. Continues the Gemara and says, "Hachinami de'amar le lechi shamana mefer le." We're doing an akimta to the sugya. We're talking about a situation that the husband is hearing the vows, but he's afraid that he'll be too busy because he's teaching Torah. I don't know. He's a lawyer. He's whatever. So he will hear the neder, but he's afraid that he'll be too distracted. Maybe he's too much on the WhatsApp. And because he's afraid of his distraction, he tells his shaliach, listen, if you see me hear a vow, you are now able to be mefer. So we're working in a team. I'm listening and you're being mefer. Okay, so this is the sugya up till now. Let's just sum it up. The sugya asks, can a husband give another person the power to be mefer the nedarim? Says the Gemara, it's a machloket between Rabbi Yoshia and Rabbi Yonatan. Rabbi Yonatan thinks that he can. Shlucho shel adam k'moto. Rabbi Yoshia thinks there's a gzera katuv saying that he can't. But even Rabbi Yonatan agrees that the husband has to hear the vows, that he cannot give this apotropos the ability to hear. He can only give him the ability to be mefer, but not the ability to hear. And all the Rishonim here asks a question that arises strongly from the text. If we have this rule that shlucho shel adam kemoto, that if I make somebody my shaliach, he's like me, he's like a second Yael. So why would there be a difference between the power to be mefer nedarim to hearing? I can tell this person, you'll be like me in order to hear. I don't need to hear. You'll hear everything. But the Gemara obviously thinks that when a person is making a shaliach, even though shlucho shel adam kemoto, he cannot say that when this apotropos is hearing the nadarim, it's as if the husband himself heard the nadarim. And the question, of course, is why? What is the difference between the ability to hear to the ability to be mefer nadarim? And this question is the question that the Ran asks here. לעולם ימלך דבעי שמיעה, ושנה הכה דאיכא שמיעה דאפוטרופוס, וכיוון דשלוחו של אדם כמותו הווה ליה כאילו שמע בעל. Says the Ran, why is the end of the sugya like this? We should say that when the apotropos is the shaliach, so he's like the Baal. It's as if the Baal heard. It's shlucho shel adam kemoto. תרצו בתוספות בשם הרב רבי יוסף ז"ל, דלייתא, דאמעיתא דבעי שמיעה, מי איכא מידי דבעל לא מצא מפר, ושליח מצא משפה. The Ran, after asking the question, gives us a teretz from the Tosfot, and this teretz from the Tosfot is teaching us a very important law in Dinei Shlichut, a law which is an idea which is in a machloket of Rishonim. But here, the Tosfot thinks that why can't the husband say to his shaliach, you'll be as if I'm listening? Because when I'm creating a shaliach, I can only give the shaliach the powers that I have right now. And if the husband heard now the nadarim, he could give him the power to hear. But since the husband at present hasn't heard anything, he cannot give the shaliach a power that he does not have in himself. So that's the question of the Ran and the Ran's answer. And the Ran is giving us an answer about Dinei Shlichut. Shlucho shel adam kemoto. Yes, you can create a shaliach, but you can only give the shaliach the power that you have right now. Any powers that you will have in the future, you cannot give this person. Only what's right now fully in you, you can pass. And since you don't have the ability to hear the nadarim right now because you're not hearing them, you cannot pass that ability to the shaliach. The Rosh here, a very famous Rosh, gives a different answer. Says the Rosh the following: V'ha lo shamion. It's the same question of the Ran. Why is the sugya so obviously certain that if the husband hasn't heard, then nothing can happen? ושמיעת האפוטרופוס אינה כשמיעת הבעל, ואף על פי שעשאו שליח להפר, דבמידי דממילא לא שייך מינוי שליחות. Says the Rosh, you can do a shaliach for everything, but this is a midei demimela. Midei demimela lo shayach minui shlichut. Okay, what's the machloket between the Ran and the Rosh? The question, let's just sum it up, was why was the Gemara so sure that you can make somebody your shaliach to be mefer, but not to make a shaliach to be hearing? If shlucho shel adam kemoto, just turn the shaliach to be as if he's the Baal, so he'll hear, he's being mefer. Why do you have to create this team that the husband is hearing and he's too busy, and that's why he's giving the apotropos only the power to be mefer? Two different answers. The Ran says, because at the time of Minui Shlichut, he still cannot be mefer the nadarim because he didn't hear, so he cannot make a shaliach for something that he himself cannot do. And the Rosh is saying, no, he can make a shaliach for everything, but he cannot make a shaliach for mila de mimele. Mila de mimele is not part of shlichut. The Ktsot took this idea of the Rosh and created it into a very big theme. And let's look at the Rosh. Ktsot siman kuf pei bet seif katan al. Says the Ktsot is bothered by the question that I asked in the beginning of the shir. יש מקשים. אם כן, לכל דבר מצווה יועיל השליח ויאמר לחברו שבסוכה עבורי, הנחתלין עבורי. ולאו מילתא היא שהמצווה שחיבו המקום לעשות בגופו, יחליף טוב הוא על ידי שלוחו, והוא לא יעשה כלום. The Ktsot says Anybody who learns shlichut has this crazy idea. Okay, if I can make somebody a shaliach, so I'll just sit at home. I'll do nothing. I'll make other people my shlichim, and they'll do mitzvahs for me. They'll daven for me. They'll sing the sukkah for me. They put tefillin for me, and I can be a good Jew. So the Tzot starts by saying, I don't know why, but I think this is wrong. Like, even if we did learn that shlucho shel adam kemoto, it can never reach the conclusion that the person can sit at home and have somebody else do it for him. So this is a very interesting situation, and Achron starts his commentary by saying, I am sure that I have to reach the conclusion that this is not true, that you cannot have somebody else do mitzvahs for you. But now I need to find a way to reach my conclusion. So the Tzot continues, and he finds a way to explain why. What is the logic behind having somebody not being able to do mitzvot for me? We have the rule of shlucho shel adam kemoto. says the Tzot, והנראה לעניות דעתי בזה. כיוון דשליח של אדם כמותו, לא אמרינן אלא במידה דעשייה, דעזב אלי מעשה שלוחו כמותו. אבל במידה דליקה עשייה, לא אמרינן שליח של אדם כמותו. The Tzot is מחדש. When we say שלוחו של אדם כמותו, we don't say the person is me. We say the maaseh of the person is like my maaseh. And therefore shlichut can only be in maaseh, not in things that are not active, not maaseh. במידה דליקה עשייה, לא אמרינן שלוחו של אדם כמותו. And then he quotes our Rosh Nidar. וכמו שכתוב הראש בפירוש עולה נדרים, דף ע"ב, לעושה שליח להפר נדרי אשתו, דפרח בגמרא ועל השמי אלי, וכתב שם ז"ל, שמיעת האפוטרופוס אינה כשמיעת הבעל, ואף על פי שעשהו שליח להפר, ובמידה דממילא לא שייך מינוי שליחות. עד כאן לשונו. So the Tzot takes the Rosh that we learned, and he says, see, the Rosh gave this explanation. The Rosh made a very big difference between listening, and he called it mida demimele. Says the Tzot, be'etzem, when the Rosh said mida demimele, he meant what I am saying. I'm saying that shlichut only works in maises. And mida demimele means that shlichut does not work in something that is not a maise. Continues the Tzot, משום הכי בפסח וקידושים וגירושים, אבל אין מייסה שליח כמותו, וכאילו הוא בעצמו שחט הפסח, וכן, וקידושים וגירושים, כאילו הבעל עצמו נתן הקידושים או הגירושים. אבל בתפילין, שהשליח מניח התפילין, ההנחה הזו היא עשייה, חשיב כאילו המשלח עשה ההנחה הזאת, אבל הקטע לא הניח תפילין על ראשו, אלא על ראש שלוחו, ואין גוף השליח גוף המשלח, כיוון דמידה דממילא, לא שייך מינוי שליחות. Says the Tzot, anything that has to be a deed, the shaliach works. So that's why a shaliach can be megarish for me, can be mekadesh for me, can be shochet pesach for me, because he's doing a deed on something which is not me. He's doing a deed with my wife, he's doing a deed with korban. But if I'm saying, you be a shaliach to put tefillin, he can be a shaliach to put the tefillin on my head, but he cannot be a shaliach to put the tefillin on his body, because his body is not my body, and when it comes to what my body does, since it's not a maaseh, it's mida demimele, there the shaliach cannot be instead of me. So this is a very, very, very famous ksub. Actually, I can finish the Gefet now. I'll just sum it up just for a minute, but I will continue a little bit. So we saw that in our sugya there's a machloket rishonim. Why was the Gemara so certain that you cannot create a shaliach that will be also listening and not only mefer? Two different answers. One was the answer of the Tosfot, that since the husband himself cannot right now be mefer, he cannot give that ability to the shaliach. And the Rosh gave a different answer, that b'mida demimele lo shalach shlichut. The Tzot took what the Rosh said and turned it into a whole conceptual idea in shlichut, saying that shlichut only works in maisim, and only maisim you can give shlichut for. Things that are not maisim, you cannot be creating somebody as a shaliach, and that is why you cannot have somebody do shlichut in mitzvahs that involve your body. You can do shlichut in mitzvahs that are involving your maaseh on other objects, but if the object of the mitzvah is your body, you cannot have anyone take the place of your own flesh. That was the Tzot. We have other ideas in other achronim to explain why a person cannot be doing mitzvah for another person. So this is just an extra in this year, so I'll give the extra. One is the Shita of Yad HaMelech in Shut Chatam Sofer. The Yael Melech describes that עיר אחת גדולה לאלוהים בשנת תקע"ד לא היה בבית הכנסת שלהם אלא את רוב אחד, וציווה הגדול שיקח השליח ציבור עבור כולם, והם ישמעו הברכה ויענו אמן ויצאו ידי חובתם ביום השני ויום טוב ראשון חל בשבת. So there's a story here that there was a town that there was only one Esrog, and the Rav there said that the Shliach Tzibur will take the Esrog and he'll make the bracha for everybody. And it will be this person who's doing the anu of Arba Minim, it's as if the whole community did it. And according to Yael Melech, it sounds as if you can definitely do mitzvahs for other people. So here we have a machloket with the Tzot. The Tzot was very sure that you cannot do this, and we said the Yael Melech thought that you can't. The Or Zarua also talks about this issue, and he gives a different explanation. ואם בשחיטה ובהפרשת חלה נאמר בו, ולא יעשה השליח לשחוט בהמתו ולהפריש חלה מעיסתו, וגם לא ידעתי איך יברך ראובן על שחיטת בהמת שמעון על הפרשת חלה מעיסה, שאינו מצווה לשחוט הבהמה הזו ולא הפריש חלה מעיסה הזו. וגם מה יתנה הפרשת חלה שיכול לקיים מצוותו על ידי שליח מכל מצוות תפילין וציצית וסוכה ולולה ואכילת מצה. So the Or Zarua asks our question, why are some mitzvahs that we can give people to do, like to be mafrish chala for me, or to be shochet for me, but we cannot have somebody do the mitzvah of the body, tefillin, tzitzit, and sukkah, and lulav. And the answer that the Or Zarua gives is not the answer that the Tzot gave, it's a different answer. Shema, שחיטה והפרשת חלה אין מצוותם, אלא שתתקן העיסה. לכתיב גבי תרומה, גם נתן לשמור שעיקר מצוותה רק לתקן העיסה ולתת חלה לכהן. כן, שישחט הנשחט, וכן קידושין. עיקר המצווה שתהיה לו אישה מקודשת, וכן בגירושין והפרשת תרומה ושחיטת קודשים, קריאת מזוזה בעשיית מעקה. אבל בתפילית וציצים, באכילת מצה וסוכה ולולב, אין שייך חילוק. That's the Or Zarua. I'll give you a different chiluk between the mitzvah. When a mitzvah is there, not because you're interested in the mitzvah, you're interested in the result of the mitzvah. You want to be metakin something, you want to fix something in the world, that's how you can make somebody shaliach. But if you're not fixing anything, then you cannot make a shaliach, and that is the difference between tefillin and tzitzit and achilat matzah v'sukkah v'lulav. It's not fixing. But if you want to be fixing something, you can have somebody do it for you. So here's a different answer of the Malach Or Zarua. Shlichut is only if the mitzvah is there because it's interested in the result, not if it's interested in the deed itself. Tosfot Reed gives a different explanation. ולאו מילתא היא, שהמצווה שחיווה המקום לעשות בגופו, איך יפטרו על ידי שלוחו והוא לא יעשה כלום. The Tosfot Reed also thinks exactly like the Tzot and like the Malach Or Zarua, and not like Yael Melech, that it cannot be that somebody can do the mitzvah in my body, because God told me that I need to do it in my body. So how will I explain this rationally, lumdishly? בוודאי בגירושים ובקידושין מהנה כי הוא המגרש ולא השליח, שמא כתב בגט אנא פלונית פטרין פלונית וכן נמי האישה למי היא מקודשת, כי אם לא והיא אשתו, וכן בתרומה הוא נותן התרומה מפירותיו, וכן בפסח הוא אוכל עמו ועל שמו יישחט. אבל בסוכה הכי נמי יכול לומר לשליחו עשה לי סוכה והוא ישב בה, אבל אם ישב בה חברו לא קיימו כלום, וכן לולב וציצית בכל המצוות. Says the Tosfot Reed, what is the difference between Gerushin, Kiddushin, Truma, Pesach? There, everybody knows that the shaliach is doing it for someone else. I think Kiddushin and Gerushin is the easiest way. When you write Kiddushin, you have the name of the husband there. You're saying Hitkachi le Ploni. You have to say the name of the person who's not there. And in Gitin, you have to have the husband's name in the get. So it's very obvious that this person is not there for another person. There's no way to mix it up. Truma, you can see somebody who you know 100% these are not his peiros, and still he can do something for them because he's doing it for somebody else, and it's clear people who see that this is not his. But if somebody is doing a mitzvah in his body, yeah, it's very confusing. People can't in any way know who is he doing it for. So the Reed is saying the difference between the mitzvahs that I can do for other people and the mitzvahs that I cannot do for other people is if there's an easy way to know that I'm there for someone else, I can do the mitzvah. But if it's something that cannot be told, that people from the side won't be able to tell you, oh, this is not Yael's peiros, this is not Yael's korban. When they see my body, it's very hard to say, oh, this is not Yael's body. So when it's very hard to make the interpretation and I'm there for somebody else, that's when the mitzvah won't be for another person. You can only work for another person if it's obviously related to another person and not to me. So let's sum up all of the shitot that we saw. We started by saying that there's a question in the sugya, why is hearing not something the husband can give the apotropos? We had different answers. We focused on the answer of the Rosh, that and then we saw that the Rosh is a way of understanding a very interesting concept, a big question. Why are some mitzvot that I can give somebody else to do for me, like kiddushin, gerushin, shchita, truma, and other mitzvot you cannot do it? So here we learned a very interesting machloket between Rishonim and Achronim. First, we saw one shita who thought, yeah, sure, Yad HaMelech really described the kihila, that the two kanetro, that one person was holding the esrog and arba minim, and he did it for all the crowd. Yad HaMelech thinks it's okay because shlucho shel adam kemoto, shlucho shel adam kemoto, a person can be doing mitzvahs to another person. But all the other Yishanim and Achronim that we saw thought that this cannot be. That there is no way that mitzvahs that I have to do in my body I can give to someone else, even though shlucho shel adam kemoto. And here we had a few different explanations. The main explanation that we give was the explanation of the Ksot that built on the Rosh. The Ksot said, shlichut is only b'maaseh and not b'varim shehem lo maaseh. And therefore, when I'm giving a shaliach to put tefillin on, the deed of putting the tefillin on he's doing for me, but he has to put it on my body, because my body is not doing any deed. It's just there passively, and passiveness is not something that you can do shlichut in, and he's building on the Rosh. And that's how he explains the difference between the mitzvahs that you can give a shaliach and the mitzvahs that you cannot give a shaliach. We had different explanations. We saw the Tosafot that's saying that it has to do with a way to determine whether or not you're there for someone else, or is it very, very hard to tell if it's your body. You actually have a very difficult problem in knowing who's the mitzvah being done for, because there's no way to determine that you're doing it for someone else. That was the Tosafot. And we saw the Malach Ozawar, who said that things that have to do in fixing or on a result, that's what you can give a shaliach. But if it's something that has no result, you're interested in the deed itself, you cannot give that for a shaliach, because shlucho shel adam is only in fixing things and not in doing things. It's not about doing, it's only about doing, it's not about being. So also it's very interesting that what you hear many times that there's a difference between doing and being. We saw that also in the Ksot and also in the Ma'arach Ozarua. And the basic thing, we saw this in the Rosh. The Rosh was the first one who said there's a difference between being and doing. In things of being, you cannot have shlichut, even though shlucho shel adam kemoto. So I hope you enjoyed the Gefet, which had a lot of classic things in it. V'ezrat Hashem, I hope you will remember this Rosh very well, and also this Ksot, which is a very famous Ksot, and the whole Sugya. If you want to relearn it, please come back to our Gefet and revive. So I hope you enjoyed, and we will meet again, Ezrat Hashem, soon. Take care.